All right, Locker Room Philosophers fans, we are here with another Tuesday Lessons from the Mat Q&A and Philosophy with Mike D episode. We got me, Carlos, and Mike. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. We're here in the studio, so it's about to be a good one. So, Mike,
How
what
about
was?
those lions behind you?
Yeah, they're struggling. They just lost to the freaking Bears yesterday.
The panic is real now.
Yeah, people's Kool-Aid's running out a little bit, I think. But it so that game, it was interesting because you could see the massive difference between having an athletic quarterback versus a super unathletic quarterback. Like Goff is just so gumpy and can't move very well, and then Justin Fields is out here moving around, extending plays. He had like two different ones where he just tossed the ball randomly to people. Not randomly, it was obviously intentional, but like just extending the play by being athletic. It's yeah, that's
Yeah,
helpful. That's helpful for sure.
yeah. That's even somewhat mobility is seems to be very important these days at quarterback. But it was the thing is with that game. What made me nervous is okay. It's an outdoor game on the road. Um, he one of the criticisms of Goff is his hand size, right? And like so, but like when it's cold out and then you're outdoors on the road, he doesn't really. I don't think his stats are that great on the road, outdoors. So I was just like, man, and it's cold. So I was like, I was like, I think there's gonna be a lot more turnovers, like fumble wise, just because of the way that could happen. And then the Bears
His
D
little
is,
hands.
yeah, I don't know, but
I had just
it's just,
commented. I had just commented to Lauren about how, oh, that's weird. He's wearing receiver gloves, and then right then he had that fumble, the bad exchange on the snap with the center.
yeah.
Really, right when I said that, I was like, damn, shouldn't have said that.
Which that's like shared blame there too.
Well, yeah, the
Yeah,
center
but
kind of
but
double
that's it
clutched.
sucked. Yeah, it's been a lot of turnovers consistently each year, like each week now. I think the last 3-4 weeks or something. But
Yeah, he's been struggling.
I will say this though, like okay, as a lifelong Lions fan, I was still like optimistic. I still am, but I was cautiously optimistic. So like when all that little talk was going on about Super Bowl crap, dude, that would be amazing. But I was like, then you look at San Fran, Eagles, Dallas, and I'm like, we're not there yet. Is like our roster isn't there yet, in my opinion, right? Like the depth and stuff. But it's just like, okay, that's something we're still building towards. So I was just like, I'm happy with making the playoffs, and then obviously if we can winning the division, making the playoffs, and then if you can win a playoff game, awesome. But even if you just win the division, man, and then make the playoffs, and then keep building on that, right? Build something that's going to be sustained.
Yeah,
But so like I wasn't, like a couple of those games when they lost, when like the kind of the bloom popped out of people's dream of them being in the Super Bowl. I wasn't one of them. I was like, yeah, it's about right. I kind of feel like that's, you know, kind of like the cream kind of rises to the top and, things
yeah.
kind of settle in. But
Well, I think it's funny
still a lot of
how,
football left.
yeah, I think it's funny though how, you know, Lions fans are all of a sudden picky about this stuff. Like, what are they, 8-4 now? Like
Not 9 and
that,
4.
9-4. Yeah, like that's the best record in
Dude, since like the nine and three
anybody's lifetime. Yeah,
since like the '60s, it was like their best
yeah.
starts.
So
Yeah.
it's funny to me. But all right, lessons from the mat. What was your lesson from the mat?
Okay, so my lesson from the mat was actually from Krav Maga mats.
Mm.
So this one was actually in we were doing some drills training, and it was a drill about kind of like focusing on some awareness too, and then throwing a little bit like screwing up your OODA loop and throwing some different variables in there. So it was a drill. It was me and three people, so it was four of us total. So as I'm moving and navigating the threats that we were kind of working with, what happened was during training, during the drill, and it's like the instructor kind of rotates you and calls time, so you don't really know how long you're working the drill. You're just working it, kind of dealing with the chaos and the changing environment. And then what happened is like my shoe popped off in the middle of like navigating these threats and striking and counterattacking and stuff like that. My shoe popped off, and I actually like paused and went down to put my shoe back on so I can keep working the drill. And then I finished the drill like shortly after. But then he called me out on it, and it
Yeah.
was a reminder of like, hey, dude, like your shoe's gonna pop out, and if that's real life out there in the streets, if something goes down, if your shoe pops out, you don't want to be drilling that into that habit, that way of drilling, to where if that happens, you got to continue to fight on with what you have, what circumstances you're in, like with. So it's just like a reminder of like you always train like how you train is how you prepare, and how like things are going to happen when shit does hit the fan. It's
Yeah.
like that's where you kind of like fall to your level of training, and then your level of training needs to be realistic and also like factor in these things. Like something might go wrong, like things don't always go as planned or smoothly, but you can't just like stop and try to fix them necessarily, while the threats kind of still going on there. So it was just a little reminder for me. It's like, even though it is training, like train it in terms of it being real,
Hmm.
like even mentally,
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
knowing like, okay, it's a training session, but mentally just like run it through your head like it's actual real, like real life situations. So then it just cements in better. You don't have those bad training habits.
Yeah. I don't know if, like, I haven't read an article about this or anything, but they would tell us on the range about this story where I think it was out west, but like LA or whatever, LAPD got in some shooting, and I think they were saying that this was a time when revolvers were a thing, but I guess on the range, they would they would shoot, and then they would dump the rounds because it was a revolver, and then they'd like bend down and pick up the brass, and then they would reload. So
Mm.
then some officer got in a shooting and then ended up getting killed, and then that officer had like a pocket full of brass. Like in this gun battle, they had bent down and picked up their brass, and it's like, no, that's a training scar. And then
Mm-hmm.
uh, same thing with now with the semi-autos. When you eject the magazine, we're taught like just let it just let it fall. Don't bend down and pick it up until everything's over with, and don't like eject the magazine and then like pull it out and put it in your pocket or whatever. Like just eject it, let it fall, and then you know keep running through your drills, because there's bad training scars there. So that's just my little relevant tidbit there related to
Yeah, I mean
your story.
that's yeah. Even with firearms involved, to see it play out in real life, that's an eye opener. It's like
Hmm.
even when you're in a shootout, you like those scars from training. Like you still don't know better, right? So it's like you're not gonna like fix it and all of a sudden like correct these issues if you're not training and drilling that way. So
Yeah,
it was a good reminder. Yeah,
for sure. And
great
then
reminder.
mine was I rolled with a certain person who was just really worried about keeping everything tight, like elbows tight to the body, and just like not giving me any openings. And then this person, like they're not, they haven't been training as long as me, um, but just when they're keeping so tight, you know, they're just on the defensive and nothing's happening. Like they need to move to make openings. They need to be trying to escape to make openings, especially because this person was bigger and stronger than me. Uh, but so my thought with how that led to life was, if you're not taking risks and doing things to improve your position, if you're just sitting there being tight, like not taking any risks, just minimizing your risks in general, then you're not going to grow. You're not going to move. You're not going to escape and improve your position in life, or in this case, in jujitsu. So my thought after the round was like, wow, that was really boring. Like usually after I'd roll with somebody, it's like, okay, that was fun. Like, we did some things, we had some good exchanges. Maybe I'm breathing hard, whatever. I got a good little a little cardio session at a minimum. But this was really boring. I was in mount with this person. They were for like 4 minutes. They were tucking their chin, keeping their elbows tight, and they were just like content with doing that. And it was like, man, this was boring. Maybe I should
You
get better
mounted
at,
them.
yeah.
You weren't.
And yeah, but they were just content with staying in bottom mount and just keeping everything tight. And so yeah, maybe I should get better at, separating people's elbows and starting to make moves. But if that person isn't trying to, for example, getting a knee to elbow escape and then starting to shrimp or do whatever, like I'm not going to get that underhook if they're not trying to do something to give me that space. I'm not going to be able to gift wrap them and then start to try and take their back or my Kimura or anything like that if they're not trying to move. And so again, how that related to life was just if you're not willing to take any risks, if you're just content with, all right, I'm going to do, whatever it is I'm going to do and not try and improve myself. I'm just going to keep the status quo. Then, you're not going to improve and it could potentially be a boring experience. If you're completely okay with that, like maybe that person was just working their defense that day and that's not what they normally do. I don't know. I don't roll with that person off. That was actually the first time I rolled with that person. Um, but if that's what they're content with doing, then whatever. If that makes them happy, that's fine. But I'm not content with just sitting there and letting somebody mount me. So, you know, that just immediately it struck me like there's a life lesson here. Let me dissect this later. So that was my lesson is if you're not willing to take risks, things aren't going to be as fun and maybe not as worthwhile. But then also there's a dichotomy to that, right? If you're too busy taking risks, if they're trying to really work that knee to elbow escape, or if they're, pushing and extending away, and then I can get the underhook and then start to go to a arm triangle or start to work to take their back. Like, yeah, there's a risk there. They could end up in a worse position, but if they're fundamentally sound, then they can regain their guard and get in a better position, or they can start to work in a butterfly hook and sweep, and then they can end up in mount themselves. So that was just kind of my thought.
Yeah, that's how that's how you learn, especially like I mean in life, but then also in martial arts and jujitsu, like you gotta, I think for me it's like taking those risks with some kind of intention, whether it's like even if you don't really know too much, but it's like okay, let me try to establish something, make some kind of move, or um, because I don't know how you feel about it, but I find it's hard to like I'm a worse grappler when the person isn't engaging, like when they're very defensive. But there's like also defensive, but then also like you're trying to still make movement. You're like you said, you're defensive, but you're also looking to escape. You're not just like staying tight. So then you're working on both your defense, your framing, distance. Then you're working on also escaping from that bad position. And then, okay, even if you escape and then you get put in, and then that person moves on to a different kind of control, then you work on escaping from that position. So it's like, I've went plenty of times from being mounted to, okay, now I'm in like a half guard and then I get smashed. And then now all of a sudden they have side control on me, right? They pass that half guard and, or whatever. And then sometimes you go to north south and but like in order to get better, like you said, you have to put yourself in these positions to like learn from them and learn what to do, how to identify things. Um, but I find it very difficult to like roll in those situations when the person is like very just anti like movement in terms of like just kind of staying tight and not wanting to move. Which is I get it though in the beginning. Some people that might be the way it is for a minute, but like get submitted, like
Yeah,
get smashed in different positions. Who cares? Like that's just, especially on the training floor. That's how you're gonna like learn and get better. But to your point, just like you said, even with life, it's like you don't lose by taking these risks. You win or you learn, and then like by learning from that loss or that whatever, but you're still learning, so it's really not a loss. It's still like if you're learning, you're still winning, so it's kind of like a win-win. It's just how
Hmm.
you frame it. It's what you take away from it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
for
I
sure.
agree.
All right, and then so on to the Q&A. So Mike and I, we did these Myers Briggs personality type tests. I think I posted them on the Locker Room Philosophers Instagram account to see if people would take the test, and we could have some discussions. I don't really think we had much feedback on that, but I did post on my personal one and had some good interactions with people about it. So we're going to discuss. We're going to first start with Mike. Mike is an ENFJ, which the 16 personalities organization or whatever defines that person as a protagonist. And what ENFJ stands for is extroverted, intuitive, feeling, and judging personality traits. So the inverse of extrovert is introverted, intuitive. I think it's thinking, or no, feeling is the opposite of the feeling one is thinking. Intuitive. I don't remember what the opposite of that one is. Oh, it's observant. So you're either intuitive or observant. And then judging, it's either judging or prospecting. So what the summary is for a ENFJ is ENFJs feel called to serve a greater purpose in life. Thoughtful and idealistic, these personality types strive to have a positive impact on other people and the world around them. They rarely shy away from an opportunity to do the right thing, even when doing so is far from easy. Protagonists are born leaders, which explain why these personalities can be found among many notable politicians, coaches, and teachers. Their passion and charisma allow them to inspire others, not just in their careers, but in every arena of their lives, including their relationships. Few things bring protagonists a deeper sense of joy and fulfillment than guiding friends and loved ones to grow into their best selves. So, I think that one fits you very well because obviously, I mean, you're super into philosophy and trying to help people figure all that out. Um, and you've been super helpful to me. So I'll read what mine is and then we can discuss them. So mine is an ESTJ. So again, Mike was an ENFJ. I'm an ESTJ. This one is summarized as an executive. So an ESTJ is someone with extroverted, observant thinking and judging personality traits. They possess great fortitude, emphatically following their own sensible judgment. They often serve as a stabilizing force among others, able to offer solid direction amid adversity. Executives are representatives of tradition and order, utilizing their understanding of what is right, wrong, and socially acceptable to bring families and communities together. Embracing the values of honesty, dedication, and dignity, people with the executive personality type are valued for their clear advice and guidance, and they happily lead the way on difficult paths. Taking pride in bringing people together, executives often take on roles as community organizers, working hard to bring everyone together in celebration of cherished local events or in defense of traditional values that hold families and communities together. So, Mike, I know when we were going over this, you were like, "Nah, this whole thing's a hoax," and then you started reading it, and you're like, "Oh man, this one's actually kind of accurate." So, give us your thoughts on being a protagonist.
I think it depends on how I was feeling that day. I don't know, man. I,
That's that feeling part.
yeah, so okay, it's interesting because so my initial response is kind of like but then the more you look at it, there's a lot of truth to a lot of that too, especially the more you start reading into it. Because honestly, like my reaction to it is like at first was like because it's like okay, like sometimes it's not all like to me I'm like well I don't always like rely on my feel like I'm not always like in my feelings and like always like like intuition's great but I don't so I was just automatically trying to like process it and try to reject this thing that so and then the more I read up on it because they give that little report through this is through 16 personalities or whatever so they give you like the write up and stuff And then like, you know, the more I read up on it, I was like, damn, it's pretty spot on for majority of it, like all of it, honestly. But um, it was interesting. It's interesting, and even the way I was like answering the questions, it was interesting too because it kind of lines up to where it makes sense. But so what? Like what? So what? When you get your results for this, though, what do you take from it in terms of? So for me, it's like, yeah, like I think like you need to be a combination of everything. Like sometimes it's like, am I more extroverted or am I more introvert, or is it like does it depend on the day, and does it depend on like sometimes you need to be a little more introverted in some instances.
Yeah.
Sometimes you
So
might not need to be into your feelings, but be aware of them. You know what I'm saying? But like not being. But does that mean like a feeling person is, you know, it doesn't mean you're influenced by them, or does it mean it's more you're more aware of them? So I'm just trying to like analyze, like break this all down. Like what is this thing trying to say about me? You know? So I can appreciate the test for sure because it is like allowing me to kind of like break these little things down and just kind
yeah,
of see. But
yeah. So for me, I
I
mean,
just
I've
don't
done.
like labels. That's why I was like,
Yeah,
like I feel like they put me in this one like pot of something, and I feel like you're like somebody's like they're labeling me to blur, but I'm a little bit of that too, you know. Like I like I don't want to be stuck in
putting you
this.
in a box.
Yeah, yeah. So I like I automatically reject that stuff usually, but it's nice because it makes me look into it.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, I've done these for a while. That we did them in school, and I've been the same thing the whole time. And for me, it's kind of interesting because, yeah, at first, it's like, I was thinking when I was about to do this time around, I was like, oh, I've got to have changed, because the last time I did this was in college, and then before that, it was in like middle school or whatever, or high school, and so I was like, I've got to have changed by now. I'm 10 years older or whatever, and I've had all these life experiences. Like I've got to have changed, and it turns out that I haven't. And then also it's weird thinking like, okay, there's only 16 options. Like of all the people in the world, like we can be split up into just 16 different categories in terms of our personalities. So that's interesting to me. But I think that this one does fit me pretty well. Um, I don't necessarily appreciate the people they're comparing me to, but the like I definitely see the traits like that I put out, the traits that it's saying that I would put out. I think there's a reason why I have work sons pretty much everywhere that I've worked,
It's
just because.
annoyingly accurate, like all
Yeah,
with the traits. It's,
yeah. So I think that it's pretty good. But I'm not going to like base my life off of it. I'm not about to go join like some ESTJ support group or anything, but it's just interesting to know like, okay, yeah, this stuff is accurate. And then when you look deeper into it, especially if you look into like the relationship part of it, it's like, okay, yeah, I can see, especially with my personality type, we're like very our way or the highway. Like we believe in something very strongly and we're not really going to budge on it. So it's like, okay, in relationships, I should probably be a little more open minded. And like, I will come off as abrasive. And I've definitely, definitely noticed that in the past. So it's I like knowing the weaknesses of my personality type more than I dig into any of the rest of it.
yeah. So I think that's the I think that's how you use these too. Like that's a big part of using these is even if it's I don't even think it's a week like just working with your personality type and knowing, you know, like knowing when you need to kind of, you know, it's like being aware of like your tendencies with
Mhm.
certain things, you know. So like, okay, if you're working with somebody else who, and then you can kind of pick up to, like, I'm gonna go around now and I'm just gonna start looking at people and be like, are you an ENFJ or whatever these things are? You're just trying to like figure out like
Like
what
when
they're,
girls will talk about the stupid like Scorpio or whatever
yeah,
whatever that thing's
yeah,
called.
yeah, yeah.
the moon
Uh,
stuff.
yeah, yeah, yeah. What is like astronomy, astrology,
Yeah, yeah.
astrology? Yeah. Um, or is it astronomy?
I think
Astronomy,
astronomy is just looking at the stars and studying them.
astrology,
I think
astrology. Then
astrology's
the signs.
the girl one. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Like Leo's and Aries, like we're hooking up, like, stuff like
uh,
that. Yeah.
yeah, something like
Like
that.
he's a yeah, yeah. It's no, but it's I think the because they have like the whole thing like based on career, like what type of career. But I think all in all, it kind of makes sense though because like I told you, like I don't offline, like how I wanted to be a cop when I was younger and stuff like that, right? And like pursuing it and taking even like taking a little bit of criminal justice and going to MCOLs, right? Going through that, but then like fast forward, it's like yeah. Like I wouldn't have. Like I don't think I would have been that great of a
No,
cop too because it just wasn't like it didn't fit my personality too. So it was weird because um, there's like a lot of the aspects that I wanted to do because of the helping people, right? The serving
yeah,
people, like things like that really appealed to me. But then it's just like it didn't work out for some reasons. And then like looking back at it, I'm like it makes sense that it didn't though. Like I'm not that like there's no regret there. Like it's kind of like it just didn't work out because it wasn't supposed to.
yeah, for
So it
sure.
does make sense because you feel like if you don't fit for something, right, if just something doesn't feel right, you just doesn't feel right. So I think having awareness over that stuff is good.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. I mean, the top two jobs for my personality type are cop and real estate agent. So
Yeah,
that's
scary
pretty
job.
weird.
That's, and I,
So
th- I think
yeah,
there was like a cold plunge engineer
yeah,
was
yeah.
down there too.
Maybe car flipper in the future. I
Yeah.
don't know, but yeah, it's interesting. But next question: what sport would you compete in if you had to be in the Olympics? So I don't know how you would have to be in the Olympics if this is like a Hunger Games situation, but what sport would you compete in if you had to be in the Olympics?
Okay, I
So
got a
we'll do it.
couple.
We'll do it as a two-part thing. So what would you prefer to be in, and then what do you think you'd be best at? And we could do summer or winter Olympics.
Okay, so this is what I would prefer to be in, and then so if I is this like at my talents right now, or is this like if I could be decent at if I made the Olympics from talent, like which one would I choose to be good at, kind of thing.
Sure. However you want it to be. I
Okay,
don't.
all right, just so it makes so
There's probably not many 40-year-olds in the Olympics. So let's say
yeah, yeah. I think that I
20,
think there I think there well, I don't know if she was 40, but there was one.
maybe like
Wasn't was
fencing.
wasn't she a gymnast? I think there was like a female, but she was like
There's
older,
no way a gymnast would be that
and
old.
maybe not a gymnast, or was she like
They're like 15, aren't they? Like the
yeah? But I think
Olympic gymnasts are.
there was one lady, woman who was like at least in her 30s, but she was the oldest. We could probably find out, but she was like
I'm googling this right now. Now I'm curious.
like the oldest Olympic athlete. It was recent.
This one is a
I think she was
dude.
like Russian or not Russian or something like something from the Eastern area.
So the oldest Olympian was a guy who was 64,
Damn,
but this was in 1912, and he was on the single shot running deer team. So that's a pretty old record. So he was just shooting deer that were running across the field.
that's Olympics. Oh, for shooting. Interesting.
Yeah. So I mean, you don't need to be all that athletic for that. But all right. So
Yeah.
what's your answer?
All right. So if I okay, so um, what were the two questions? So one to choose that I would be
If you were to be in the Olympics, what would you want to be it, and then what do you think you would be
good
the
at,
best at?
the
Yeah.
best at. Okay. So would I want to be? So I want to be basketball. Um,
You're like
that'd
oh,
be.
you're like a
I mean,
5'11"
that's what I'm
white
saying.
dude.
That's why that's why I had to start the question. Like, is this something that if I had the ability to be good at and pick,
Why
so I'd
would you
want
pick
to.
basketball?
I love basketball. I just always enjoyed the sport of basketball. Playing it growing up, always it's like it's the sport that was like one of the ones that just never wavered in terms of my interest in watching it and following it. And I played at rec leagues and stuff. So I just like basketball, so I'd probably pick that. I think that'd be pretty sweet.
Troy, Michigan is known for producing basketball stars for sure.
Hey, we had a couple legit ones when I was playing. I mean, I didn't play for Troy, but when I was going to Athens, we had a couple good guys. But yeah, it was basketball would be the one I'd pick. Um, it was close though. There's another one that I really like, which is the one that I think I would do like given all the choices, just because of like I'm trying to factor in like what my body makeup and stuff would probably be more suited for. It'd be wrestling. I'd probably pick. I mean, I'd get smoked in the Olympics, but like I feel like I'd be down. I enjoy that. I enjoy like the grappling aspects, so that'd be super fun. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, because yeah, all the other ones, I don't know if I do so good. I'm not really a winter sport guy. Um,
The
so
Winter Olympics has some crazy stuff though. Like
yeah, but I don't
the
want the
ones where
others.
you're like the ones where you're like skiing and then you got to go shoot like your pellet gun and then you got to go ski some more and then
Yeah,
shoot another. Yeah, I mean that's not sweet for sure, but
I mean that's like James Bond. That's pretty cool. Trying to
except that
these.
it's a pellet gun.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Or bobsledding. Like the Winter Olympics are the least. Like I don't really. I mean, I watch them. They're fun to watch. I don't mind them, but um, I don't know that I would pick any winner. Like hockey would be the Winter Olympic that I'd pick.
Yeah,
To play hockey would
hockey'd
be
be
cool.
sweet.
I liked hockey growing up.
So for me, my answers would either be probably do they have men's beach volleyball? Because I
Yeah,
would do
I think
that
so.
for
Yeah,
I would do that for sure. I like beach volleyball better than on a court.
you got like the volleyball frame too. Seems
Not
like
to brag, but I was pretty good at
yeah,
beach volleyball. We
you're
used to run
taller.
the Eastern rec courts. But yeah, so either that or handball. We don't play that in America outside of gym class, but that was pretty fun. I always enjoyed handball.
Handball is cool. No
But I
water
don't.
polo.
No, I suck at swimming.
Hmm.
I am god awful at swimming.
I mean,
All
I mean, I suck at basketball. I mean, just like, I still want to play in the Olympics
yeah, I don't think I'd want to just be in a
in the water.
chlorinated pool that long. All right, so last question: what is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
That's so hard to answer. I will say a piece of advice because there's so many things that like depending on the time, this is the best. But like the piece of advice I'd say is that has been money for me is is basically like approaching things with the intention to understand. So like whether it's learning something new, learning from somebody, listening to somebody's perspective, but always trying to understand their perspective, whether you agree with it or not, but you're trying to like understand what they're trying to say, put yourself in their position so you can kind of get an idea of what their perspective is and some more understanding. And even if you walk away and you don't you're if it's something that you disagree with and you walk away from it, it's not necessarily that you have to like agree with them, but having a level of understanding I think really helps. I think it just helps like humanity in general kind of
Mhm.
come to a better idea of like what it is to be a human being, and that we all have different perspectives, different information, different ways of seeing things, and having a better understanding kind of helps you kind of grow and it like broadens your level of understanding in general of life and different things. So just approaching things with the intention to understand is huge.
For sure, and I would say that mine, it's definitely a stoic thing, but just it's not about what happens to you, it's about your reaction to that. Like, you can only control what you can control, and all that you can control is your reaction to what happens to you. You can't necessarily control what happens to you. So I had lunch with a buddy of mine like a couple weeks ago, and he said that his dad would tell him, this didn't happen to you, it happened for you. And I think that's a pretty good way of reframing how you look at things that are going on. And that makes you kind of, at least for me, that kind of makes me think like, all right, how can I turn this into my benefit? You know, this didn't happen to me, it happened for me. So just a matter of figuring out what I can learn from this situation. And you're not going to get anything by just being gloomy or, you know, being all worked up about something. You just got to think about how this situation can benefit you, what you can learn from it, what skills you can gain from being exposed to whatever it is that happened. So I would say that that is the best piece of advice I've ever been given.
That's great advice. Yeah, that's a nice reframe for sure.
Yeah. So that wraps up our Q&A segment. Up next, we got everyone's favorite, philosophy with Mike D. So, Mike, what do you got for us today?
Where's the clapping hands? So we don't have the clapping hands. All right. Everyone's gonna clap. All right. So today, let's see what we have on the docket. All right. So this one is gonna be one of the classic Stoic sayings that most people have probably heard, um, to some level, but it's Carpe Diem.
Mm,
So it seize the day, right? So this has been something that I've been, kind of focusing on a lot, just contemplating a lot lately. Is just kind of being present, being in the present moment, and taking the present moment as like the present moment is our moment, right? That's everybody's moment, is the current present moment. So going too far in the past, living in the future, they're not. That's not reality. That's not like what is here. That's not us living in the moment, living in our reality. So it's like sometimes when you're in your thoughts and you're kind of looking back in the past too much, doesn't mean you shouldn't analyze these things to kind of, make sure you're moving in this direction, but in a certain direction. But you want to make sure that you are aware that the present moment is the most important moment, because that is the only moment that you really have at the end of the day. You're not guaranteed tomorrow. um, so instead of living in the past or the future, it's just rather about living in the now. So the quote from this is from Seneca, and it says, let us therefore set out wholeheartedly, leaving aside our many distractions, and exert ourselves in the single purpose, before we realize too late the swift and unstoppable flight of time and are left behind. As each day arises, welcome it as the very best day of all, and make it your own possession. We must seize what flees. So that was from Seneca. And then, it's just like one of those things where, I kind of made a post about this too. It's like, it's also living in gratitude. So it's making the best that you have of this moment of today. You wake up today, and it's like, what are you going to do to make this day the best day, the most powerful day? And there's a book that was written by Phil Stutz and Barry Michaels, I think. It's called The Tools. I wrote a little note here on it because it kind of goes along with the whole seize the day thing. So seizing the day and making the day, focusing on the present moment and making it the best day possible, whatever that day gives you. Sometimes you wake up and things happen, and the day kind of, can knock you in the head, and that's the thing where this little excerpt from the book, The Tools, it's called The Grateful Flow. So this is like part of the way I process a day too. Is like, okay, I always try to start my day off with these certain things that kind of prime me for the day. And then, like anything, you're a human being. So if something happens to where it kind of knocks you off track, and you all of a sudden aren't feeling the best during that day for whatever reason, the grateful flow goes like this. It's the moment. And then you have to put the emphasis on the moment. So it's the moment when you become aware, so awareness, when you become aware that a cloud of negativity is floating into your day. Take a step back, take a deep breath, and simply look around you and notice the things for which you can be grateful. Because you can't be grateful and you can't be basically depressed or have a negative mindset at the same time. So it's like the awareness is huge, and just kind of taking us like when you notice that something is happening negatively around you, it's like taking that step back, taking a deep breath, and just thinking about what you're grateful for, and just kind of and about the present day. Because there's like so many, there's it's easy to really get down on yourself, but then if you really like think about it, it's like, hey, my worst day could be somebody's best day, right? Or these things that I have. That's why gratitude is so important to me. It's because like what I do have, be grateful for. Don't try to always look for the things that you want in life that you don't have, and put like a lot of weight into those. Just look at what you do have. Like what am I grateful for? What do I have now that's basically providing all I need. So that kind of helps me stay in that present day of gratitude, and just really, you know, be present more of that day, and enjoy this day, and try to get through it the best you can, because it's life, so life gets messy. So it's just like having the tools and to kind of keep you on track is huge.
For sure. I appreciate you sharing that. And I just Googled this to make sure I didn't sound like an idiot, but
Hmm.
the movie that talks about Carpe Diem, that's the Dead Poet Society.
Mm.
So if people
Yep.
haven't watched that, that's a pretty classic movie.
What year did that come out? Do you
1989, I believe. Yep, 1989.
How old were you?
I was -6.
It's great. It's wonderful. It's great. That's a
we
good
watched
movie, though.
we watched it in school. So
Yeah, yeah, it's a great movie.
R.I.P. to Robin Williams. But all right, so we're gonna close this one out with that segment from Philosophy with Mike D. Appreciate you sharing that, and yeah, everyone have a good day.
All right. Talk to you guys later.